just maybe, we might get some of your phone calls in as well. The miracle of modern science. I hope you've been having a good week. Andy Burnham's been having a great week because he's finally got the job he wanted. Third time lucky. Are we lucky? That's one of the subjects we're going to be talking about today. Not just that, we'll also be talking about the kind of instructions we might want to give Andy Burnham because he is, after all, not our leader, he is our servant. I wonder why so many politicians forget that. They work for us, you work for us. I actually remembered that even when I was a member of Parliament, unfortunately. My constituents didn't want me to carry on working for them, but that's another story. I'm not going to use you, dear viewers, as my counselling. I'll get over it eventually. We'll also be talking to Graham Moore, founder and chairman of the English Constitution Society and party as well, on what it means to be British and actually English as well. Now, they're two different things, of course. British is 4 nations, English is 1. English are the people who also can't win the Football World Cup, just like Scotland, but they just kept us guessing a little bit longer. So we'll talk about the Constitution in Burnham's Britain and what it actually means, because there's some case to answer there about what we're actually going to do. Sweet Freedom 999 says, good morning, Len, but good morning to you as well. Morning. Does that mean you're Australian? You let me know in the messages. Could be. And Hamish says, hey, folks, hi, Lembit, looking forward to this. Thank you. Now you're putting me under pressure. And with the name Hamish, I want to be clear, I wasn't criticising Scotland because England didn't win the World Cup either. Though they could potentially have done a little bit better against Argentina, I think. But there we go. Maybe we would have lost anyway. And we got June Slater, political commentator, on Anne Widdecombe. That's a terrible, terrible story where Anne Widdecombe was actually hit on the skull 21 times with a hammer. I actually heard that some days ago and hoped it wasn't true. What a way to go. 78-year-old who's hammered to death in her own house. Yeah, it is. Pooch says it's unbelievable. What's incomprehensible is why would someone do that to a 78-year-old? And it didn't seem to me there was anything to do with this being a random robbery. Who would drive that distance? The suspect, and he is a suspect. He's not been found guilty yet. Made an inordinate journey to carry out this murder. The fact it's a murder is in no doubt now. So we'll be talking about that. And Keith Tordoff, somebody I've known for quite a few years, MBE, no less, former West Yorkshire police officer. He'll be joining us as well on that same subject, the question of Anne Widdecombe. Anne Widdecombe was a great friend to UK Life, regularly came on, generally on Mondays, and was all set again. I have to say that the morning after her death was announced, I was with Mike Graham here in these studios, next door technically, and we were eulogising about her on the basis that she was one of the great voices in Britain. Whether you agreed with her or not wasn't the point. It was the fact that she did seem to have a genuine sincerity in what she said, and I was honoured to know her really for about 3 decades. And we just thought that she'd passed away for some reason. Mike and I both thought she'd passed away peacefully in the night. Nothing could have been further from the truth. And I think the hammer blow for us is the fact that she had such a violent death. So her passing deserves attention and respect and some questions to answer as well. So all of that coming up. Please do press the like button. That helps us a lot. Doesn't cost you anything, but it's very useful if you support the channel here as well. Now, sometimes I feel the presence of greatness and sometimes feel humbled by it. It's the latter today because there's none other than the great Mike Graham.
Very good morning to you, sir.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, very well. Very well. It seemed like only the other day I saw you in a garden.
That's right. In a garden party. How British was that? How English was that?
It was terribly English. We were laughing actually this morning because I was describing the sandwiches, which somebody said was a bit like something out of the 1970s. It was God, love and affection, said Bob Stewart and everything, but it was quite an interesting choice of food, shall we say.
Unexpected. Cheese onion sandwiches.
But
egg.
They had champagne to make up for it, so champagne and sort of lashings of ginger beer. There was that kind of feel. There was that kind of vibe. But no, it was a lovely day and met some interesting people. Lots of people very excited about our venture, which is nice. And people are talking about, what we're doing and what you're doing here and what Kelvin's doing. And so, yeah, we're quite excited. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, the terrible story about Anne. And obviously we're sort of hidebound in a way by the legal kind of straitjacket we have to be in. But I think we can say without any fear of contradiction, it seems bizarre that the police thought that she had suffered from some kind of fall, given the nature of what we now know were the injuries.
It's worse than that, I think. The police were going on and on and on to all of us. Do not speculate.
Yes.
But we know there's no evidence of political
Right.
motive, no evidence of terrorism. Then they say, do not speculate, but we think it was terrorism.
Yeah. Well, I've been talking about a word I heard yesterday for the first time this morning, which is malinformation. Which is not misinformation, which is information that's a bit wrong. Disinformation, which is information which is deliberately misleading. Malinformation now is information that's correct, but may inflame the public in some way, or may force you to feel some form of emotion like anger or distress or sadness. And so the government would like to control that and say, you won't be able to disseminate that malinformation, which seems to me to be a bit sinister.
I think it's worse than that. Like, I think that the police have an agenda. That's how I feel. That's my opinion. And I never forget when that idiot drove into the traffic, into the crowds in Liverpool, when there was some football celebration. And within moments almost, they kept saying, oh, he's a white man, and I think it was in his 50s, from the area, he's British.
Yes.
But then something very similar happened in Leicester. It wasn't much covered, but I've got an interest in Leicester. And they wouldn't tell us anything about the suspect's ethnicity.
Well, so now, of course, what we assume and what most people assume is if they don't say who the suspect is, if they don't say the suspect's white, then everybody assumes, well, obviously the suspect isn't white. So it kind of has the reverse effect, doesn't it? And they can't, I think the problem is as well, in general, they can't control social media. This is why they're trying to, and that's why they want to, in order to make sure that they don't look stupid half the time.
Well, and also because they can't control it, they lose the agenda. You and I have talked about, and you've often covered in your programme, that the mainstream media is in such desperate collusion with the Uni Party. And they don't like it when we can go past that. And so now the long arm of censorship seems to be reaching out to these very studios.
Yeah, absolutely. They'd love to be able to sort of choose what it is that we can say and what we can't say. But as of now, they can't do that. And I think we have to be really careful that that doesn't ever happen.
How do you stop it, though?
Well, I guess we just have to continue to resist, and maybe it'll mean people end up going to jail for it. But I would, I would go to jail for freedom of speech, no question.
Yeah, and although the Americans aren't perfect on this, I've spent the last few days with some Americans, and they couldn't believe, first of all, the state of London. The man, William, who I was working with, he was absolutely appalled by how much London had changed. And I have to say it was about 2 decades. He couldn't believe the change. And the second thing was he couldn't believe the censorship. He just didn't believe me when I said, no, well, some woman went to prison, Lucy Connolly, for hurty words, which she took down a few hours later, while Ricky Jones, the Labour councillor who said, let's slit the throats of the far right, said, oh, it was a joke, and he was found innocent.
I know, it's incredible. I mean, Jack Posobiec was here last week for the CPAC conference, and he came in and we spoke, and he said he couldn't believe when he opened up his social media account that there were things he couldn't look at because he was in Britain and it said, oh, this content is unavailable in your country. And he was like, sorry, I've never had that anywhere. Any other country in the world where I've been hasn't said that, except now in Britain.
And once that precedent is set, who is the arbiter?
Exactly.
Nick Clegg, the most useless leader the Liberal Democrats ever had, went on to be some kind of ethics guru for some big charity.
Well, look at Louise Haigh. I mean, Louise Haigh is now supposedly in charge of ethics inside Downing Street, They've managed to strip away her ability to judge people for fraudulent behaviour in the public sector, but she's still in charge of ethics.
Wasn't she the phone woman?
She was. Yeah. She reported, and not only did, I said this to Kelvin yesterday, not only did she report her phone stolen when it wasn't, she used the stolen phone to report it. So she's not the brain of Britain here, right? And the cunning police were able to track down the fact that this may not be a true story, given that the phone number that you've just phoned us on is the one number you said has been stolen.
Well, what was the justification? It was just a mistake.
Apparently so, yeah. She was traumatised by having been mugged, apparently. Except that the mugger, she said, who took the phone, didn't take the phone. So
giving her the phone back.
I don't know.
It reminds me of...
They obviously have a problem with phones. I mean, Morgan McSweeney's phone still hasn't been found.
Yeah. It's very, very odd. We won't even get into Hugh Edwards. It's a different story.
Yes.
It's almost like Louise Haigh said, yesterday everything I owned was stolen and replaced with an exact replica.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Yes. How did it happen?
What were the highlights for your show
Do you know what I
today?
didn't know until today, though, was that she went to private school. Which, again, I don't care that she went to private school, but I just object to this kind of anti-private school rhetoric that they all come out with.
I hate it. What I loathe about it is all the people who send their kids to private school are still paying for the state system, but they're not putting a burden on the state system.
Yeah.
So they're saying, well, tough, we're going to...
It's like people who use private health. You know, you're still paying for the NHS, you're just not using it.
Yeah. And frankly, I don't want... I fully understand when people don't want to have their children's heads poisoned with the woke agenda. When you've got people talking about age-inappropriate sexual and gender politics to prepubescent children.
I know.
What's happening to our country?
I know. Well, there's so many things wrong that you wouldn't know where to begin. And sadly, I don't think Burnham's going to make them any better.
I like him as a person.
Do you know?
As a person, yeah. But when I was an MP, he came in after me. And he's much more charismatic than Starmer, but that's not very difficult.
That's even the lemon there is more charismatic than Starmer.
Could technically outlast. I don't know how long
yes.
lasts. But the thing is, how much is he going to be held in, caught in by the unions, by the people who've got him there? Because he'll be beholden to a lot of people now.
He will, and particularly his backbenchers. You know, and unfortunately, his government will be a government of Labour Parliamentary Party backbenchers because he's trying to keep them happy.
Well, that's the difficulty because he actually works for us, but he's answerable to his own Labour Party. I didn't notice what happened to Rachel Reeves. Did she get a job?
Her sister got a job. So her sister's now the Attorney General, Ellie Reeves. Sounds exactly like her.
Oh, yes, that's right.
They could flip. But apparently she was going to be offered education. That's what I read yesterday. And she turned it down. Because at one point people thought she was going to be offered defence, which I thought, that can't be right. Surely can't be right. But apparently she was offered education and didn't want it.
That's incredible, isn't it? Talk about bitter. I'm glad, though. I think she's utterly
I'm glad
useless.
she's out. I'm glad that Lammy's out. I'm glad that Reid is out. I'm glad that Herma's out. So, I mean, that part of it I'm quite happy with. But the replacements aren't any better.
There's such a paucity of talent. I was talking to somebody yesterday about, once again, from America, and he just couldn't believe... I showed him the clip of David Lammy on Mastermind. When he thought that Henry VII came after Henry VIII. And he thought that the blue cheese that's associated with port is Red Leicester.
Red Leicester.
It's incredible, really.
And he mixed up Marie Antoinette and Marie Curie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Marie Antoinette won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903, according to him. And also, the whole bunch of other questions. Bastille and Versailles, he got mixed up and so forth. What was the big lesson from your show today, would you say?
Well, I mean, today we were talking mostly about this whole northern nonsense. You know, they're making a big deal about the fact that, you know, we've got now more northern cabinet members than we've ever had. I don't care. I mean, I'm not interested in where they're from, really. I think it's just, the whole thing is just a smoke and mirrors exercise. But my favourite story of the day was the one where apparently Albanian prisoners are spending about 900 phone calls a day in prison, running in various drug gangs around the place. And it's a very, very much higher number than anybody else using phones in prison. And phones are supposed to be illegal in prison, but I think they're also using the prison phones. But they're literally running their networks from prison. 900 phone calls a day registered to all the Albanian drug dealers.
You make 900 calls a day.
No.
You can't be doing anything else. They don't have time to repent.
Well, they're not just calling their mothers, are they? You know.
Not really.
Hello, Mum. How's it going? You know, they're running businesses from prison, and nobody seems to be able to do anything about it.
Well, luckily they'll all be let out soon, so that we can put people like Lucy Connolly in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We can lock people up for speech issues.
It really is, and the free speech comes back and back and back because in broadcasting. You either just parrot what you're given on an auto cue from the establishment, or you actually think for yourself.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're going to keep doing what we do until they tell us we can't do it, and then we'll move.
Oh, then we'll carry on.
Yeah, but we'll go somewhere else and do it.
First Amendment appeals then, across the pond.
Across the pond, or, you know, Channel Islands or somewhere. You know.
Or we could have the boat that rocked.
Oh, the boat that rocked, that could work.
Up to the point, not everything that happened on the boat. I've spoken to people who were on that boat.
Yes, I'm sure that there were things that we probably shouldn't know about.
We shouldn't talk about. We know about them.
Yes, exactly right.
Good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you.
And cheese and onion sandwiches all round later then.
Yeah, absolutely. See you later.
So, yeah, absolutely. That's, of course, the inestimably brilliant Mike Graham. And we were indeed at a very English garden party. It was inhabited by current and former politicians, all of whom had something to say about Anne Widdecombe as well, of course. And the tragedy of what happened there, of course, is something we'll return to later on. Just two thoughts about what Mike was saying. Free speech is a recurring theme here because that's what we're about at UK Live. And you'll notice a migration of independent thinkers, I think, from the mainstream, what you might call the mainstream establishment broadcasting sector to here. And I suppose the mission objective here is to replace the diet of repetitive stuff that we get and manufactured, almost sterilized news with authenticity. After all, what does censorship actually mean? What it means is that we have so little faith in you as a citizen that we can't risk you drawing your own conclusions. That's what censorship's about. I got involved in politics primarily because of libertarian issues, in other words, questions of liberty and questions of free speech. And at that time, as you may or may not know, I used to be in the Liberal Democrats when it was liberal and democratic. I don't think it's either anymore, that's my opinion. Of course, let me know what you think on that too. And in the 40 plus years I've been involved in politics, the biggest change I have seen is the departure of trust, I think, from those who mistakenly think they are in charge, who now say, well, you can't really say those things because they might be offensive, or they might stir up trouble, or they might make you wrong-headed about the national or international agenda. That is the antithesis of what proper broadcasting should be all about. I have really, I suppose, all my life worked on the assumption, perhaps naively, that the media should give you the facts, share their opinions, not mix the two things up, and then trust you to think for yourself. Have your say on this as well. By the way, please do press like if you can. That would be great. If you happen to agree, and even if you disagree, you can tell me the same thing. But fundamentally, something we're going to keep coming back to here is defending your right to expect respect from us here in the studio to let you know what we think, what the facts are, and what you might want to conclude from that. That is much more interesting than telling you that you can't hear views which are contrary to the mainstream. Okay, we'll come back to all of this later. Oh, but before we go, yeah, Miamook says they don't want us to think for ourselves, Len, but absolutely right. Well, they're not going to stop us here. We will, as Mike Graham rightly said, we will fight, and fight again to defend the free speech that we cherish. And on that subject, let's take a quick break to get the latest news. See you in a minute.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The Knob of the North has held his first cabinet meeting and announced an immediate cut to VAT on household electricity bills from 1st October, aiming to ease the cost of living crisis. The move is expected to save the average household around £45 a year. Yes, mate, I can't wait to spend that extra 90 pence a week. Meanwhile, a London court heard that former Minister and Reform UK figure Anne Widdecombe, 78, was struck 21 times on the head with a hammer while eating lunch at her Devon home. Joshua Kerry, 28, has been charged with her murder. I see the Times isn't covering this. Right. Elsewhere, the new Defence Minister described a Russian warship's live-fire exercise off the UK coast as irresponsible. Appointing a convicted fraudster as Deputy Prime Minister is irresponsible in my book. Latest Tigers.
Len Bidopic here. Thanks for that news bulletin, and thank you for the compliments. Liking the tie, says Gadget Man 00. I didn't actually clock it was my tie that you were talking about. And Hamish, who seems to have forgiven me for my slightly acerbic comment about the Scotland football team, says it's quite a smart tie, that, Len, but I've always liked Scotland. Suddenly. Yes, I'm actually colourblind. I've just been talking to the team about this earlier on. You'll tend to see I wear very plain clothes, as in very few patterns and so forth, because I can't tell some colours apart. I can't tell purple from blue, not good with green and brown. So apologies in advance if I come in here looking like I'm deliberately trying to provoke your eyes into some kind of sort of distracted distress. You look like a proper gentleman, says Clansman Boyd. Well, okay, steady on now. There'll be a lot of gentlemen in Britain who doubtless will now feel that I'm bringing it down the side. But thank you. Yes, this is a tie. I think it's got quite a posh name, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Actually, it's not very posh at all. I think it might have been from Savile Row, maybe, kind of. Not really. But thank you. Yes, well, do give me these rare compliments. Very rarely get complimented for my sartorial elegance. Now, let's get back to work. Let's have a look at what's in the newspapers, if that's okay. Daily Mail. Who's going to pay the bill for Andy's largesse, is the headline there. Let me read a little bit of this. This is obviously about Andy Burnham. Day 2 of Andy Burnham's leadership, or premiership, I think is more accurate, sees a raft of uncosted promises and the first mutiny no less, for a sacked Starmerite, echoing the nation by asking that question. Starmerite sounds like something that stops your railings from rusting. If Starmer made it, it would probably have the opposite effect. But let me read you this. Andy Burnham was last night asked to explain how he will pay for his left-wing spending spree, says the Daily Mail. In an early warning sign, the new Prime Minister's first cost-of-living pledge unravelled within hours. Yesterday, as the sacked minister revealed, it was unfunded. Da, da, da. Well, actually, yes. One of the problems with this particular story, and I saw this all the time when I was an MP, was they spend money which they didn't have in the first place, but they reallocate it because it was coming from another unfunded promise. And this is the problem that they've got. Essentially, Andy Burnham is desperate to draw a line in the sand between him and Keir Starmer, but he's fallen into a very simple trap. And Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, who I think has actually raised her game quite a lot recently, says, "Where's the money coming from? I'm very concerned the Prime Minister is making a lot of promises without giving the country an explanation about how we can afford them. His agenda has raised fears that the Labour leader will hit the middle classes with fresh tax rises." And that is my concern too. Now, as I was saying to Mike Graham a few minutes ago, I'm more benign, more positive about the character of Andy Burnham. I spent time working with him for 5 years, in fact, in Parliament. We weren't in the same party, but inevitably you rub shoulders with people in every party. And he was one of the more agreeable people that I saw there. And subsequently, in other work I've done, our paths crossed in Manchester. And so I'm more benign about the person, but he has a double problem. First problem is the unions, who every Labour leader is beholden to a large extent, though Tony Blair did make an effort to try to break that link. And the second group is his own Labour backbench. They expect some kind of compensation for the 2 years of misery no less, that they experienced under Keir Starmer, who's so forgettable now, actually, that you have to pause from it and try to remember what his name was. The difficulty, though, is if Andy Burnham starts squeezing the rich and the middle class, not so rich middle classes, even more, the exodus will continue of millionaires. Now, you don't have to be a millionaire to be concerned about what's happening, but you have to be very concerned with 16,000 millionaires leaving a 12-month period, mainly because many of them are wealth generators. And you just think about the billions and billions which are going offshore, for example, to Dubai, and that's all money going out of the British economy. So that's a big question. I think Daily Mail is asking the right question there. Incidentally, it also talks about the horrendous hammer attack, Widdicombe being hit 21 times in the head. That is just... words fail me, actually. It's just something I would never, ever have imagined could befall a woman of her grace and dignity. I have to tell you that when I lost my seat, Anne Widdicombe was one of the very few people in the world who sent me a handwritten note talking about the future, giving me some advice. She happened to retire at the same time as I did. And that was thoughtful. And we've passed each other many times in green rooms and places because we both ended up being in the celebrity world, her far more successfully than me, I have to say. And to find out that she'd passed away, as Jane Carroll says, it's devastating. We've lost a friend here in the Channel. I've lost a friend of 3 decades standing. And I think that justice has to be done here. One last thing about what Mike Graham was saying and we were discussing. Why did the police almost insist that there was no evidence that this was anything to do with politics and then do a volte-face, 180-degree U-turn and say, well, actually it could be. And then the anti-terror people got involved. And who is this man? What do we know about him? And why is he behaving like this? Right, let's go to some of the other papers. The Times says Burnham signals cuts to pay for spending pledges. Cabinet told to find savings to fund promises on energy bills, council houses, utilities and bus fares. Well, once again, it's the same general theme. The problem we have here, of course, is that sooner or later he has to either increase borrowing, increase taxes, or reduce expenditure. Those are the only three things he can possibly do. And if he doesn't do that well, we are going to end up in an unholy mess. And we're going to talk about that with my guest in just a moment. And one more, The Sun, which aside from having Shakira and J-Lo on the front there, also says Anne hit 21 times with a hammer. Pooch is making the sound I feel. It's just revulsion. Absolute revulsion. Murder suspect in court. Ex-MP killed as she ate. She lived alone, as far as I know, and she was found a day after passing away. Words fail me, really. And when it's that close to home, I would say, for all the criticisms of Nigel Farage, he genuinely does have a security issue. And that nobody deserves. And I also wonder what that means for other members of Parliament and former members of Parliament. What's happening to our democracy? In the old days, we wouldn't even countenance this kind of thing could happen in the UK. And now here it is, writ large, right before our eyes. An unsolved crime so far, which for all I know will take a long time to come to pass. Now, I want to go back to talk about Andy Burnham instead of focusing too much on this. So inevitably we'll probably touch on this for next guest. Linda Dury. Hello.
Ellie Hodges.
Oh, Ellie Hodges, sorry.
Don't worry, it's fine.
I'll tell you exactly why I did that. Because I was reading that.
Next, we're running late.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. You know,
I did last minute, it's fine.
I was actually criticising broadcasters who just read things from the autocue, and then I did it myself. Please, Britain, forgive me. Please forgive me for that. Ellie, thank you for coming in, mate.
No problem. Nice to actually meet you.
At last, yes, good to see you. I feel like I will shake hands, actually. Good to see you at last, yeah. And the most silly thing is, I saw you from the corner of my eye earlier on, and I thought, that's not Linda. Thanks for coming in.
No problem.
And thanks for being on time.
Yeah, no problem. I was here anyway, so I mean, usually I'm not on time, but I think there's no excuses for me not to be on time when I'm already in the building.
Well, you should have said no. You've travelled 100 miles for one of our smiles there, but that's okay.
Sorry, of course.
Make us feel good.
About the state of broadcast media at the moment and legacy media.
And that's exactly where I want to carry on. I've just been looking at the headlines here, but my worry is, and get straight to it, I think that the legacy media is in a complete mess. And I think that they're in total visible collusion with the Uni Party, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, and to an extent the Greens. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I do completely agree, and I do think it's a shame because, for example, the BBC, our state broadcaster, it should actually be a good news channel that we can rely on, and it's a shame that it's gone down the route that it has gone down. And I'm not one of these people who say that the BBC has no use. I know that people I know that live abroad, for example, they still tune into it when they want to know what's going on in this country, but that's the problem because that means that that's all their information they're getting about this country is from the BBC, which is also not a good thing. However, I do think that people in this country now just have no trust in legacy media at all, and why should they? When we had the BBC, for example, splice that clip together of Trump saying something he literally did not say. I mean, at CPAC last weekend, I was speaking to some of the Americans and they all knew about that and they were all outraged about that. And that's something that shouldn't happen at all, and we should be able to rely on our state broadcaster, but unfortunately we can't. And then we've had recent events with Sky News going to Nigel Farage's daughter's house and just acting in ways
they deny they did anything wrong.
Oh, of course they do, of course. But that kind of thing that is actually despicable and will affect people's lives. And I'm really against media involving people who are in political positions, family, in things, especially when they have no public image whatsoever, which is like Farage's daughter. And also something I've spoke out about is Andy Burnham's wife, for example, when she turned up at Downing Street a couple of days ago, and everyone started criticising the way that she looks. I don't agree with that either, because I think that it's not her fault that she's ended up with someone who's gone on to be the Prime Minister. I think they met when they were really young, and it's just unnecessary. So I'm against that from all political sides.
I don't know. I disagree. I think they should. Yes, I'll tell you why. They should write to Lord Ali and say, "Can we get some new clothes, please?" That's what always happens with Labour prime ministers.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Burnham had his suit, kind of all the buttons done up as well, and he didn't have an auto cue because he has to be different, of course, and just kind of, it's quite menacing, really. He just stared down the camera whilst giving his speech. I felt like he was directly coming for me.
Have you ever seen The Day the Earth Stood Still?
No.
People of Earth, I come in peace.
It did
Shoot
feel
to kill.
like that.
He's a bit young for that.
No, it did feel like that a little bit though.
No, Keanu Reeves did. No pitch.
right,
Keanu Reeves did a remake. Yeah, you're too old to know that.
But I think, with this Andy Burnham premiership incoming, it will be interesting to see what happens. And I went up to Makerfield during the by-election, and something that I did notice, and I will be honest about this, the vibes were very much behind Andy Burnham. You had lots of young people standing there with Vote Andy for Hope signs, speakers blaring, dancing around. And there was a sense of optimism there with Andy Burnham. However, the problem is you can't run a country on hope and vibes. And we're yet to see any real policy come through.
When I was first a Member of Parliament in the previous millennium,
Yeah.
that long ago, I remember being optimistic. I was a Liberal Democrat. I was optimistic when Tony Blair came in because it was so different to what had gone before.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe things will be good. Maybe there really will be a cool Britannia. That faded pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I suspect, though, Andy Burnham will get something of a lift because he's not Keir Starmer. And
Simply that is enough to give him a bit of a bounce in the polls. However, a lot of commentators and journalists were saying that they thought there was going to be this Burnham bounce and the polls were going to massively go into his favour, which actually is not what's happened. And I think there was a poll that was done on the 19th of July, a few days ago, and it was showing kind of the gap between the Tories, Reform and Labour really, closing. I think we had Reform on 23, Labour on 21 and Tories on 22,
I would say, I predict that the bounce will lift Reform up, Labour above Reform, but it might not stay that way. Unless he does something radically different.
Yeah, and I try to be optimistic because ultimately, no matter which party's in power, I want what's best for this country. So I hope that Andy Burnham is successful. But I think that we've also got to a state with this country where people want things to happen at a click of a fingers because they're fed up, and I completely understand that. But we have to try and give him a little bit of time to actually bring forward some hopefully good policies. I mean, I know that a lot of people won't think that he will actually deliver any meaningful change.
There's a theory with some people, and I actually spoke to somebody this morning. I got up at 5 o'clock this morning, by the way, and I've had a meeting. Oh yes, that's why I look like this. But basically, I was talking to him, and he said what he wanted to see was total chaos. He wanted the whole thing to collapse so that we could sweep away the mess, get rid of the uni party, and start again. And I was thinking, well, that's one theory, but that means things have to get a lot worse.
A lot worse.
Before they get better, and they're pretty bad
But
now.
then how far do you go with that? Do you start saying, let's let the Greens win a general election so they can mess up the country and then we can rebuild it? That's not how it works.
No border controls.
Yeah, exactly.
No border. Everyone can come in. Come over. Don't even stop in France.
And the worse things get, the more harder it gets to rebuild things. So I don't think that people should prey on Britain's downfall just so a different party can win a general election. I think that across the political parties, we should all say we want this country to do well, and hopefully Andy Burnham does do well. But I don't think people's hopes are very high.
I'm like you. I'm not wishing the disaster to befall the whole of the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
I would like to be surprised. I'd like Andy Burnham to do a
same.
great job, to cut VAT on private schools, to stop telling us that the Russians are about to invade. This crazy claim by Wes Streeting that
Our new Defence Secretary.
who said that the Russians firing off guns off the coast of Britain was performative.
I can't imagine Wes Streeting, I was actually saying this to Mike earlier, I can't imagine Wes Streeting and Putin in a room. I mean, I think he would just laugh at Wes Streeting.
Donald Trump as well. It just
Yeah, I mean, you need someone that's in that position that has had, for example, ex-military experience or is someone that has a special interest in defence. Wes Streeting has never had that, so it's a bizarre appointment, but clearly it was Andy Burnham just thinking, okay, Wes Streeting has been somewhat loyal to me. I need to give him a position of power, and this is the one that's left.
Yeah.
But I mean, all of the appointments, not all of them, but some of them are genuinely just shocking. I mean, Lucy Powers, Education Secretary, that's the worst one. So she is now in charge of education and welfare of the children of this country, and she said that the grooming gangs was, quote, dog whistle.
Unbelievable.
I mean, how can anyone trust that? And we've got such big... I was saying this on my show earlier, so sorry if anyone's just hearing me repeat myself, but I would keep banging this drum that the education system is broken and it needs to be fixed. And the way to fix it isn't by introducing more free breakfast clubs. It's by changing the structural problems and fixing them in education. And there are so many that need to be fixed.
You mentioned Lucy Powell. We might be able to play a clip.
Yeah.
Can we get the clip up?
Yeah.
This is what Lucy Powell looks like. Tell me if you think this is the gravitas you want from a country and a government that ruled half the world. Let's see if we can play it.
Can I just say, I expect this every meeting. Thank you so much, colleagues. And congratulations first. Those of you who've taken new positions, thank you for stepping up to serve, and for those reappointed to your roles, please take that as a major vote of confidence in you. And we feel like a good team. That's certainly how I feel today. A good team that reflects the party, the country, all backgrounds. You know, I think we're going to work really well together. So thank you, everybody. We've got 2 items on the agenda today: the mission, the purpose of this government, and standards.
Stop already. Stop already. He didn't say anything. He just basically said, I'm going to do good things and stop doing the bad things. And Lucy Powell, it felt like if you threw her a fish, she'd catch it, you know.
Every time I listen to him, I just assume that he's talking about Manchester in some way now, because that's all he talks about. But I mean, that did not seem like a leader talking to his cabinet there at all, did it?
Not really. Later on, someone's been telling me tales out of school about you, by the way, about CPAC. But it was good. It was good. But maybe we'll talk about that in a little while.
Okay.
No one here. No one here, Ellie.
Isn't everyone here?
No.
Okay.
That flash of menace coming from you there. So you'll have to hold on, and so will you, dear viewers. Please do remember to like and subscribe. Press that like button. Take you 10 seconds. Helps us a lot here at UK Live. Now we're going to talk to the real Linda Dublin.
You're going to talk to Ellie Hodges.
Yeah. Hello, Ellie. No. Good to see you, Linda. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Better than average. I always like it when Kelvin's busy, because I get to sit in his studio and mess things up for him. Then he has to undo all the damage tomorrow. But there we go. It says veteran broadcaster. That just sounds rude. I think you're experienced broadcaster and a grown-up person. Much better, I think.
I don't mind. A rose is a rose by any other name.
Okay. Well then, I don't know how I can build that in. The rose in the thorn of amongst the thorns of this programme. Is Andy Burnham a thorn? Or is he the red rose that can bloom again for Labour?
Well, let me say that I make this point every time because I think it's a fair point, that he is a proficient public speaker. Obviously, he's very experienced and he's very confident about using the English language. But what I will say, it's going to take an awful lot more than removing the lectern outside number 10 to convince people that he is a great communicator. And he needs to be a great communicator now because the country is in a complete mess. So I think what worries me is that I think that he is sort of he's struggling here with how to convince people that he can turn round this ocean-going liner so that it doesn't sink in the middle of the Atlantic. The problem is, and I go to this quote, it's a very famous quote, I looked it up before I came on air. Here's the quote: annual income £20, annual expenditure £19.06. Result happiness. Annual income £20, annual expenditure £20.06. Result Misery, Mr. Micawber, Charles Dickens' book. Now, that's what Andy Burnham seems to be doing here. He seems to be saying, okay, I can give you this, I can make electricity bills cheaper. He's asked how he pays for it. He then says, or Heidi Alexander says on the radio this morning, okay, that's because we're not going to give people grants for their climate projects, for their climate strategy. We're going to give them loans instead, which they will then repay. So we will have that money at some point, which will balance out this cut for people. Now, to me, that's dodgy accounting.
Yeah,
And if you expand that, it gets worse, gets much worse, because if you think about what we need to furnish his plans for a social care service, and then we have to meet our NATO commitment, which is enormous, we are never going to be able to do it.
Now, here's the issue for me. £45 a year, if you're just an average household, it's a saving. But it's less, as Nigel Farage has said, actually, it's less than £1 a week. At the same time as interest rates are killing people with mortgages. Now, actual interest rates, the inflation rate is a bit above target. It's not too bad. But really, when you think about it, a lot of people bought houses, maybe not thinking too far into the future, when interest was almost zero. Now, that change in interest rate makes hundreds of pounds of difference. Every single
every single month.
And so all of these savings disappear into the ether. And what I worry about here is that Rachel Reeves made such a total mess of the economy that the rather boring, and I like having boring chances, but boring John Healey isn't going to be able to reverse it. And they're going to keep punting the rich.
Can I just say, what puzzles me here about John Healey is he resigned because he wasn't going to get enough money for defence. Right, so we can now assume that he has got enough money for defence. Why else would he have taken the job if the level was at the point at which he felt he could resign? And as did the junior minister, Al Khan, resign on the same day. So I can't see how much more money he's been given in order to take the job.
You talk about poacher turned gamekeeper. It's like, he was saying, give me more money. And they said, oh, no, well, it's different now. And he's the guy who was telling us to prepare for war with Russia. I think he more or less told us, all little cronies are saying, Russia's on the way. What's happened to that now?
Honestly, and I'm not joking, this week we see the Russians carrying out a live fire exercise 40 miles away from Portsmouth. Now, why do you think they are doing that? They are not doing that because they want fun and war games. They are doing that to practice. The same way that they're mapping our undersea information cables, which run under the English Channel. Why do we think they're doing all of that? I mean, you have to, in fact, I would say, don't listen to politicians. Why don't you just listen to the most senior man in UK military, Richard Knighton, and why don't you listen to what he has to say? Because he says we will be in war of some description at some point in the next 3 years, and we will have to pay for it.
My optimistic friend suggested, rather fancifully, that the Russians weren't trying to threaten us at all. It was just big game fishing. But I'm not sure I completely believe that.
I tell you what I do know, and I know this from a top source. They completely breached protocol. When you do a live fire mission, you are supposed to issue what's called a NOTAM, which is a notification of marine activity. And they do that not just for big ships that might be in the area, but what happens if Joe Soap's flying his grandchildren down at the south of France in his Piper Cherokee? They do it so that no one gets killed when the missiles go up into the air. Now, the Russians did not send that protocol, point one. Point two, why did they choose that particular day? The week of Andy Burnham's final ascendancy into number 10. Why did they choose the timing?
Maybe it was a 21-gun salute for their new socialist friend. Why do you always have to see the dark side on this?
They don't even care about that. Russia doesn't care about that. It cares about economically destroying us. End of.
But we can do that for ourselves as far as I can see.
But they're in there trying. You look at some of the stuff they do on social media. You look at what they're already doing cybercrime-wise. Take a look at that.
It's interesting to note that good point. You remind me when I was a member of Parliament, the first country to have demonstrably suffered a paralysing cyber attack was actually Estonia, where my parents came from. It was never proved who did it, but a lot of people have their suspicions. Let's look at this. Let's look at the week ahead now. What are the things to watch for the rest of the week, would you say?
I think we will be all week watching Andy Burnham because he has to move so quickly that I mean, it might get a little bit boring, but we do have to watch him very carefully because I think that he will lead the news all the way through this week. And I think in many ways now, at least politics has become something that we talk about, that actually most people now have a political view. And I think that's a really important thing. Other than that, I'm not quite sure what's coming up towards the end of the week. What do you think?
I actually think you're dead right. People are watching Andy Burnham like a hawk, and you've talked, I won't repeat what you've just said, but how does he square this economic circle? I cannot see how he's going to do that. And then the other part of it, I think, is in terms of whether Andy Burnham can get some quick wins. Economically, I can't see how he can do that, but maybe he's got something else up his sleeve. I think the other thing that's worth noting is something which is missing. It's notable by its silence. The Clacton-on-Sea by-election's gone quite quiet because they're having more fun. They're attacking Andy Burnham. Count Binface, the greatest comedy prime minister we've never had. His odds have lengthened, I'm sorry to tell you. He's less likely to win now. But I get the feeling he's the establishment candidate. Labour and the Tories and the Lib Dems would love him to win.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he isn't going to win, but he's got a remarkably high profile now. I mean, I did talk about this on an earlier programme about why Nigel Farage and his team. Nigel Farage is a very good communicator, but why he and his team did not game this out the way they would in the military. The military do a red team scenario and a blue team scenario. They did the blue team scenario because they thought it would all go well and he would look like a crusading knight for winning the Clacton by-election. But they didn't do the red team scenario, and we are left with the red team scenario.
34 candidates. A man dressed as a fish finger. The Monster Raving Loony Party have 3 candidates. Nick the Flying Brick, Nick Delves, he's standing. One of my favourite policies of his is he wants to abolish gravity. And so there's going to be a tremendous sort of internal infight there between the 3 Monster Raving Loony Parties. I called them to ask them why they've done that. And I got a vague answer saying we've been planning to do this for a while. I sort of said, do you know how elections work? But I didn't really say that, but that's how I felt. So I think probably if there's space in the Andy Burnham continuous neighbourhood watch, then maybe they might go back to Clacton and get a few vox pops. I think that there's fairly foregone conclusion what's going to happen there, but 34 candidates, it's a world record for British politics, I think.
I mean, and how do we look to the international arena with all of this? You tell me.
Well,
go on.
To quote Binface, make your vote count, which I quite like. But there we go. What are you doing for the rest of the week, Linda?
I am on a very, very late programme tomorrow night, which goes out of the States, and that'll be quite interesting because it forces you to think with a different mindset. You've got to think about the American audience, and you have to think about the things that interest them, and you have to take into account, and you learn a lot about what they think about us. So that's good. And apart from that, I am writing a novel. So I've got to get that sorted. And also I'm a panellist at the Battle of Ideas in the autumn. So I've got to work on, my speech, which I won't be delivering from behind a lectern.
Well, the pressure's on you now. But it's great to see you. Linda, thanks, a veteran broadcaster. You're a Premier League broadcaster. That's what I'd say, if we're still allowed to use football analogies, if FIFA hasn't footballed us out. Good to see you. Good to see you. That is Linda Dubley. The real Linda Dubley, not the pretend Linda Dubley here, who's apparently playing Candy Crush on her phone at the moment. No, it's all right. You'll have to do what you want. No, it's fine. You don't have to apologise. We're a relaxed, broad church here. Wanted to ask you a question really about CPAC. Tell us what CPAC was. This is last week. Last week there was a conference, and you can tell us what it was, and you were there.
Yeah, so It's from America. They've got one in Australia as well, and Liz Truss decided that she wanted to kind of be the chairwoman of it here and set it up, and it's meant to bring people from across the right together, united to discuss ideas. And yeah, that was kind of the purpose of it, and I got involved and I went to it and kind of saw lots of familiar faces, which was nice. Went there to do some interviews, that kind of thing. And I assume you're referring to the tweet that I put out afterwards,
Yeah,
criticising it. Might as well address the elephant in the room. And I'm always going to be honest. If I go to an event and I think about it and I think actually it wasn't what I thought it would be like, I'm going to say that. I'm not going to take a step back and be like, oh, it was great when it wasn't, because I felt that it was poorly organised. I felt that it could have been better. I think the actual idea of it is really good. But I just don't think it was organised correctly. And I think the problem now with the right is we have so many of these right-wing conferences. There's only so many that people are going to want to go to. And this was on a Thursday and Friday, and Saturday was half a day. You do something on a Thursday and Friday in the middle of recess and in the middle of summer. You're not going to get a lot of people turn out. And I think the idea of it is really good, which is why I got involved in it, because I think that people from across the right should be able to discuss ideas. And I think the actual idea of it is good. However, I don't think it was executed as the best way it could have been.
A few people have said that, and the response would be, well, it was first time out. This is the first time to do it.
Yeah, and that's a completely fair argument to make. I think Liz has already said that she's going to do it again next year.
That's Liz Truss.
Yeah, Liz Truss has said that she's going to do it again next year, and I hope that it is a success.
You were also obliquely mentioned, I'm sure it was you,
Oh, God.
in a very... I'm not going to name the newspaper because I don't want to advertise the newspaper. I haven't bought a copy of that particular paper for a long time, but it resentfully talked about the young, upwardly mobile people who had no right to think that they should be allowed so much coverage to say whatever they wanted. And they gave a fairly accurate description of you, and also somebody else who's a friend to the show here, Jess Kane. And no, you won't have seen it necessarily.
I don't know if I've
but
seen
it was a moany piece about all the young things running around, male and female.
I think I know what you're talking about. And I think I know which.
And it was so bitchy. It was such a bitchy piece.
Is this in the Spectator?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to advertise it. On principle, I'm not going to say, because I just thought...
As a Spectator reader, I mean...
but I'm not going to advertise it to the viewers.
No, I actually thought that article was quite fair, actually, in many ways.
Well, a lot of the article said what you've just said.
I think the problem... I say this as a young person myself. I felt that at CPAC there was lots of people that were there for the vibe and for the photos and weren't there to actually discuss political ideas, which is fine, but I'm then going to say that. And I think there was kind of this lots of people from America, actually, young women, who, fair enough to them, oh, what do you do? And they say, I'm an influencer. And I thought that was really interesting, because I think people here that maybe you and I would describe as influencers have shame in saying that here. Because it's kind of seen as unserious, whereas lots of Americans there are just like, yep, I'm an influencer, that's what I do, which I thought was really interesting, and it was quite nice seeing lots of Americans and speaking to them, and there was some good American speakers there, and Nigel Farage spoke there as well, and it was packed for him speaking. But yeah, as I said, I'm not going to not criticise something just because I know some of the organisers. I'm always going to be honest about whatever event I go to.
No, we've been talking about free speech quite a lot here. And
yeah.
If you can only say one thing, it's not even helpful.
Yeah.
Being a critical friend has to be part of it. I don't really get why people go into politics if they can't take feedback. What is it? Do they suddenly become these omnipotent geniuses who know everything?
I mean, I always say... after I go on a lot of shows, actually, I always say to people, producers, what could I have done better? How was I? Because I always want to learn, and I don't mind if it's constructive criticism. I think constructive criticism is great, and that's what I'm doing with CPAC. Just insulting is not helping anyone, so I try not to engage in that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's really important that we're honest. I think a lot of people have tendencies in the media to stick up for their friends, but not actually be honest about what the actual truth is.
There's a failed version of constructive criticism came to me once. I made a speech. I knew it hadn't been very good. It was 20 years ago. It was after the speech. And I asked the wrong person, really, because I think he was tired and emotional that way. And I said, so what did you think of the speech? He said, well, in the spirit of constructive criticism, you were crap. They used rather stronger words than that.
Yeah, I don't think that's very constructive.
No.
I mean, it's definitely criticism, but I wouldn't put the word constructive before that.
I was really shocked by it, actually, because I respected the person quite a lot.
Oh, that makes it worse, though. That does make it lots worse.
But it was clear that he was probably not that focused at that time in the evening, to be honest with you. What does influence saying? That's one last thing. The reason I didn't like that article is because I used to be the Shadow Minister for Youth. I spent my time trying to get people involved in politics. So when I read stuff which says, oh, these people are too young to be taken seriously, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
Because someone's got to follow on. The reason we got such a terrible dearth of decent politicians and such absence of quality is because people don't want to go into the career anymore because it's not so attractive.
And everyone's vote counts for the same, you know? And I really, really dislike when people say, oh, you're too young to have an opinion. You're too young to talk about this. I don't think you are at all. You wouldn't say to someone that's older, you're too old to talk about this. And I get the whole, you don't have experience, but you have a different type of experience. You know, being a young person, I can probably talk more confidently about the education system, having, you know, recently been in it, talking about young people getting jobs, all these kind of things, because I've experienced it, and an older person might not, or hasn't in this time period. So I think that there's different advantages you have from being young and being older, and that's absolutely fine. And I also think that in society more generally, I had this conversation the other day, lots of people are putting older people and younger people against each other all the time. You have people saying to younger people that the older people in society are the reason we have every single problem, and that you shouldn't like them because it's their fault we have this. And then you're having older people being told that young people are all radically left-wing and that they all hate, you know, and it's putting people against each other, and I think that's a really big issue. I have lots of friends that are actually much, much older than me, and I really like that because you can learn so much from older people, and you can learn from people from different generations, and that should be promoted much more. My
9-year-old, she did give me constructive feedback. We got a flat screen like everybody else, and she's seen me here, I think, actually, and she said, oh, I saw you on TV, Daddy. I said, what did you think? She went, you're very flat. And then went back. God. Well, she meant literally I was two-dimensional. And then she went back to her Lego. But then I thought afterwards maybe she meant it the other way as well.
I think so, yeah.
But it teaches you humility.
That's funny.
I know from my kids, they're as smart as they'll ever be. They just don't have so much experience. That's the only difference. I got more experience than her. You don't become cleverer, you just become more informed.
Yeah,
that's why I objected to the sneering attitude. I think people were looking for fault as well. CPAC could come back next year, as Liz Truss has said, and you've got to start somewhere.
And I do just want to make the point that whilst I have been critical of it, I do think that the idea is a really good idea, and fair play to Liz Truss for putting it together. And just because I'm critical of it doesn't mean that I think that it was a complete, you know, waste of time, because I don't think that at all.
I suspect there's something else called the ARC, which is the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. Same kind of diaspora. I think maybe it was just they were too close together.
Too close together, yeah. So there's lots of just logistical issues that can be fixed next time, and I hope that it will be a successful event in the future. And I think that any event that's kind of in-person conference, I'm always for, because I think that we now live in a time of social media where people scroll in their echo chambers, and they'll type something out online, and you can become very kind of in this echo chamber, really, without actually speaking to anyone in real life. So I think that, and I would urge everyone kind of watching this to go to these kind of events, speak to like-minded people, but also speak to people you disagree with. And debate is so important, because every time I have a debate with someone, I either come away from it thinking, you know what, I'm right about this, or you come away from it learning something and actually thinking, I might have got that wrong. So debate is always really important, and that's why these events are important.
My offer is, I'll tell you what I've learned about winning and losing elections in exchange for working out how on earth you do social media. I don't understand it. It frightens me. And then maybe after that, why do my kids love Minecraft? But that's another story. Thank you very much, Ellie. Linda Doobly Hodges there.
Thank you so much for having me on.
It's great to have you here. That is, of course, Ellie Hodges, great influencer. Now somebody else.
Do not call me an influencer.
Pardon? Yeah, I think you're an influencer.
Oh no, let's not. Absolutely not.
You don't like it?
No, I
Okay.
don't. I really, really don't like that.
Okay, I'd like to apologise to Ellie.
Anything
That's
but
how
that.
I would have seen you, but okay, then that's why I need help. I need help to understand what these newfangled terms mean. A digital watch? What on earth is a digital
Oh no,
watch?
I don't have all of that.
So coming up after the break, we've got the great influencer, perhaps, maybe, Lewis Schaefer. He's quaffing his hair. He seems to like it, actually. So the torch passes to an older generation of influencer after the news. In the meantime, you're watching me, Lemon standing in for Kelvin MacKenzie here on UK Live. Don't go anywhere. See you in a minute.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The Knob of the North has held his first cabinet meeting and announced an immediate cut to VAT on household electricity bills from 1st October, aiming to ease the cost of living crisis. The move is expected to save the average household around £45 a year. Yes, mate, I can't wait to spend that extra 90 pence a week. Meanwhile, a London court heard that former Minister and Reform UK figure Anne Widdecombe, 78, was struck 21 times on the head with a hammer while eating lunch at her Devon home. Joshua Kerry, 28, has been charged with her murder. I see the Times isn't covering this. Right. Elsewhere, the new Defence Minister described a Russian warship's live-fire exercise off the UK coast as irresponsible. Appointing a convicted fraudster as Deputy Prime Minister is irresponsible in my book. Latest Tigers.
Welcome back. Lemon here, standing in for Kelvin MacKenzie here on UK Live. Please do press like. It helps us so much for reasons it takes too long to explain. But now that I realise that some people don't like the word influencer, I will be sure to ask my next guest what he thinks the definition is. Before that, though, just a reminder, if you've just joined us, the Sun headline, Anne Widdecombe hit 21 times with a hammer. An appalling, disgusting attack. You don't have to be pro or anti-reform to think that this is the kind of thing that we cannot allow to ever be considered in any way, even slightly acceptable. Whatever the reason, that I hope will lead to a very, very significant penalty if, of course, somebody is found guilty. We can't go too far into it because, of course, of the limitations of the legal system. But it's an awful, awful killing. Burnham signals cuts to pay for spending pledges, says the Times. And that's a really serious issue because nobody really knows where he's going to get the money. Maybe he's going to put all of the national debt away by betting on a horse. I mean, you might as well, because at least you can increase, at least you've got a chance of getting your money back there. And who's going to pay the bill for Andy's largesse? Andy Burnham, desperate to make an impact, but the Daily Mail asks the same question. That's going to haunt him, potentially, until he actually explains what he's going to do. And on top of that, you've got Wes Streeting, the perhaps slightly unlikely defence minister, according to some, who is warning us that the Russians have made a performative, whatever that means, performative gesture by live firing rounds just off the coast of Britain. Linda Doobly was talking about that as well. Maybe we'll get into that in a little while as well. Obviously, other papers and so forth. But I think the big stories at the moment are the continuing horror, which I think any sensible person feels about Anne Widdecombe's murder, and also the curiosity about what Andy Burnham, the King of the North, does next. Now he's Prime Minister of the whole country. Well, now we have the monster of Nunhead.
Yes. Well, I'm
Lewis
something
Schaefer.
of Nunhead.
Well, I went through there again.
Yeah.
Because I was on my way to Shortland Station.
Right.
Recently. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Stop by my house.
Well, yeah, that means getting off at Nunhead. I'm not sure.
It means also doxing myself, which maybe I shouldn't be the whatever I am of Nunhead.
I shall bring some friends in.
Yeah.
I have to think of something better than monster, because you're not a monster. You're a giant. You're an intellectual giant.
I am
of
a failed.
Nunhead.
I should have been something, like all of us, like that song. I should have been something, and I'm like, however you're going to introduce me, I'm a failure at it.
I just. That's
No, you got to say it. I don't want the people to think, oh my God, this guy is a something. And then they write me on Twitter, and then they say, I didn't do this. And I go, oh, of course I didn't do this. I forgot to do this. You are something. I didn't think you would be anything. But I honestly didn't. You've got a funny name. You come from a funny little country over there. Whatever.
The way you say that, it sounds like the lead up to Rodgers and Hammerstein's song of some sort in Broadway.
Well, it could be. I could see you doing something like that. You are the typical immigrant that we want in this country.
Oh, that's nice of you to say.
That we want.
That's ironic.
It is ironic. But I think that they would want somebody like you, a sprinkling, like pepper.
Or salt, but not too much because it can make you a bit sick.
Yeah, we'll destroy the flavor.
You try so hard to be British, and I think you succeed.
I don't know if I try hard. I've been here for so long. After a while, you swim in water, you're going to get wet. I'm wet.
And Nunhead is about as English as you can get in London these days.
Part of it is, but part of it is every single day it's a little less and less. I love you less and less, that song.
That's what I observe as I pass through speedily on the way to
we
Shortlands.
are a suburb of Peckham, and Peckham has its ups and its downs, and then it's ups and then it's more downs. So, I mean, it's a little area. You cannot get there. That's the essence of it.
Oh yeah, it's four trains for me.
And then you have to take a bus wherever you are, whether you're from New Cross Gate, Nunhead.
I'll take a rain check maybe.
But I feel bad that I'm actually standing up for Nunhead. I mean, who the hell? People might be looking at me saying, "Who is this guy? He's from America. Why is he talking about Nunhead so much?"
Nunhead needs all the ambassadors it can get.
It really can. Well, we've had some bad political leadership masquerading as good. I don't even want to say masquerading as good political leadership. We've got 3 cemeteries in Nunhead. Three cemeteries, and each one of them has some old woodsy bit that the council wants to tear down and bury more people there.
That worries me not a little.
Yeah.
You don't get so much tax from dead people.
No, but it helps them pay for the cemeteries instead of saying, hey, let these cemeteries become a park like they were supposed to become parks, once they're full.
I would have a whole debate about cremation versus burial, but it's a bit of a dark subject for this time in the morning. One thing that you mentioned, though, is international relations. Ed Miliband, Foreign Secretary. How is that going to go down
in
on
America?
Capitol Hill?
I mean, the fact is that Britain is at war with America, or a certain type of American, a certain type of British person is at war with America. That's why this CPAC, whatever thing, has become, oh look, they're doing a bad job because they see the enemy coming, and the enemy is America to Britain and Russia.
But is Britain really at war with America?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And America's at war. America's saying we're not going to take your stuff anymore. I never even realized this. I thought we're all in the same boat. We're all told we're all the same. I remember being told about democracy in this country and how you had free speech and all of that, and that seems to be going away.
It does seem to be problematic. Good appointment, bad appointment, Miliband, or does it just not matter?
I think it tells the people of this country what the ideology is going to be, which is Ed Miliband's ideology, which is, he's stressed climate change, which is a complete BS thing, and we have to go. They want the people to go along with it, and he is an old school communist. Well, and when I say an old school communist, I mean someone who's got like 15 million pounds.
Yes.
That kind of old school.
So weird.
Where did he get the money from?
The questions will be answered by literally burying CO2 maybe, but that's another story. Let's go back to old school, because the next guest we've got is somebody who doesn't spoken about very much, and also arguably doesn't exist in this country, which is the Constitution.
Yes, exactly right.
The English Constitution Party and society still has a very important part to play for those of us who think that it's all guesswork without a written constitution. Graham Moore, step up. Good to see you, Graham. How are you doing?
Good morning, and I am actually sitting in the middle of a field in Kent with my Starlink, so thank you to Elon Musk.
Why are you doing this? Have you got that paranoid?
Well, funny enough, currently I do have the government hunting me, But I literally did a seminar in Norfolk, a freedom festival in Norfolk in a place called Larlin. And then on the way back, we passed through East London, and I wished I hadn't. And now I'm in Kent for 2 days, and we're sort of glamping. And then we're on our way back to Devon.
Is it constitutional to go glamping? Are you allowed to? Surely you should be camping and suffering, because glamping is in itself a perversion of the ancient art of getting soaked in a tiny tent and potentially washed away.
Well, this place is called glamping because it's got some nice showers and a couple of decent toilets. But other than that, there's tents here. They got bell tents. They got different things here. But it's really lovely. The point is, it's right bang in the countryside of Kent, and no one would even know you was here.
In camping terms, washing's cheating, in my view. Washing's cheating. There's a certain amount of ironic laughter coming from the very well-turned-out Lewis Schaefer. Yeah. I couldn't imagine in a tent. Let's talk about the Constitution now. Andy Burnham, he's come in. In my introduction, I was questioning... by the way, the Liberal Democrats used to go on and on and on about written Constitution. My view, after 13 years in Parliament, is we haven't really got any kind of constitution. When people say we have an unwritten constitution, we haven't got a constitution. But what's the official position as a constitutionalist yourself, Graham?
So I am a constitutionalist. We most certainly do have a constitution. It is an English constitution in England. Scotland has its own constitution. Wales is part of England. We have what's known as a common law constitution. It is written in major parts. It is also codified. We have an English Bill of Rights, 13 rights that can never be erased. It was for forever. And then what happened is that Scotland, as a Roman law jurisdiction, basically because it bankrupted itself, begged the English to become part of England as a union. And we had a political union that we shouldn't have had. And the rot started from there, because you brought a Roman... This is not about the Scots, by the way, because I love the Scots. They brought Roman law jurisdiction into an English common law parliament and a distributed governance system that we had in England. And from that point on, after 1707, it continuously, they chipped away. The Constitution is still there. It literally goes all the way back to 1100 and beyond. But England, as I said, is 1100 years old. We have the Charter of Liberties. We have the Magna Carta of 1215. These are all constitutional laws that you can look up in the Halsby's Laws of England and the Halsby Statutes of England, where it actually shows you what our constitution is in writing. So it is in writing. I have to do this at the seminars. But on top of that, it's known as a common law constitution because the judges interpret the law, but they must always interpret the law in favour of the liberty of the people. That's the way the English constitution's always worked. Whereas Roman law is the reverse. It is statism. The state has control. So when we exported our constitution and our language to the United States of America, and I just want to make sure I say this, the greatest nation on earth for liberty and freedom.
Lewis has to have a right to reply in a minute. Carry on.
The reason it is, and the reason it becomes so powerful, is one, because of their liberties and freedoms that they kept intact from the English. The second, just look at America. It's not the most densely populated and it's not the largest landmass. Russia is. But it's the greatest nation on earth because of freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and freedom of expression. They are the three key things that allows human beings to invent. And the English and the Americans have always been the greatest inventors. That's why you've got Starlink. That's why we've got all the systems we've got. I mean, people wouldn't be flying around the world on jets unless it was for Frank Whittle. The internet wouldn't exist unless it was because of the English, because we invented not only the internet but also the computer. So
great. Let me just stop you there. Before you list everything that we've achieved in the last 500 years, because we've got less than an hour. Frank Whittle, great guy, by the way. Lou D53 says that you know the Constitution inside out, but you mentioned the United States, the greatest nation on earth. I've got to put this as an American expert, because he is American, Lewis Schaefer. I want to ask him, do you think Britain's got a Constitution?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Show me the Constitution. Show me the little booklet. I've got a booklet at home, if I could find it, of the American Constitution. If it's not written down, if this guy is a constitutional expert, maybe spend 10 minutes and write down these laws and say this is the Constitution. And
we have.
You have. Show it to me right now. It should be in your pocket right now. Americans carry around the Constitution in their pocket, or it's in their head. They know what 1 means, what 2 means, what 6 means.
Yeah, no, I agree. So what you're referring to is a fully codified constitution. We have what's known as a common law constitution.
Which means it's not a constitution. It's just a bunch of codified laws that you can say, oh, it's here, or it's here, or it's here. Put it down in one place, and then say, we want to vote on this. We want to vote on this.
Well, that's
all right.
So then our parliament are the one, and currently our judiciary are the ones who are defying the constitution. Once you get the Fabian Society and communists in positions of power, what they seek to do is destroy the constitution. They're doing it in England, and they were doing it quite largely in America. So what you've just said, I agree with. Anyone can go and buy the Halsbury's Statutes of England if they want to see it in writing.
No. It should just be a little pamphlet. I agree with you about communists and the Fabians destroying this country. But people don't know what the rules are. They don't know about freedom of speech. They don't know about what was written in the Magna Carta, which people still follow today. And because they don't know it, it doesn't exist. Which means there is no constitution.
I have to say, Graham, I'm with Lewis on this. I don't try to provoke you. Luckily, you're, as you said yourself, far away in a field. So by the time you get to the studio, you'll calm down. But I just don't see that we've got a proper constitution. And the reason I say that is because when I was in Parliament, people talk about unwritten constitution, but then they do anything they wanted. There's no First Amendment. The reason that we have our free speech destroyed in this country is because there's no First Amendment.
That's part of it, and it's not written. Is it written down anywhere? Is it written where every?
The First Amendment come from England, right? So the Petition of Right of 1627, that was all ported over to American. But and I'm not being offensive, according to our original Constitution, which was attacked in 1948 by Clement Attlee, a Fabian, you could never have been in our Parliament, right? Because you were not born of English parents.
Of English? It had to be English, not Northern Irish.
No, you're not English. And the point is, you're Northern Irish, you're British. You should never have... I'm not being offensive. And the reason why you're standing there saying, or sitting there saying we haven't got a constitution, is because you are not of our culture. You are not of England, and you don't understand our constitution. And that's why you should never, ever have been in our parliament in the first place. Not because I dislike you, because you are not of our culture and you're not of England. The point being, the reason why we brought them laws in was to keep the Dutch out, because the Dutch had started taking liberties with the English after the Glorious Revolution. So the Acts of Settlement forbid anyone not born of English parents in our parliament. And it proves the point of why they was right constitutionally to do that, because as soon as you allow people with foreign culture, white, black, brown, it doesn't matter. They don't understand England and our history and our culture, and therefore they destroy it from within.
They don't understand They don't understand the Constitution because there is no written Constitution. That's why they don't understand it. And if you actually, I don't know, this guy seems so likable. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah, I thought you'd support him because he's turned on me as well, just like you, Lewis.
I'm on Lembitt's side here.
Oh, I'm confused now.
Is that you have to follow the rules. The rules have not been written down. Period. You haven't done your job. You're a typical English person. You're saying how great America is.
Lembitt is one of the only people, and this is a big shout out to Lembitt. Lembitt is one of the only people that allows me on his show to talk about the English Constitution in England. The British absolutely they forbid me to talk about the English Constitution.
Because you haven't done your job. Your job is to write all these things down, put it in a pamphlet, and then wave it around and say, we need to have a vote on this. We need to have every shire, all 28 or 30, whatever they are shires, vote on it, like they did in America. And this is what we believe.
But the media...
Where is it? Wave it at me right now.
The media will not allow me to be on any platform.
But they're not going to stop you from printing out a little pamphlet, a piece of paper.
Right, so Graham Moore, we're obviously going to get through another half dozen prime ministers in the next month or two, because that's what we do these days. It'll eventually be your turn. What do you do about Lewis's challenge? Do you create the pamphlet that...
is the Constitution? You could say this is.
I would publish that pamphlet as We the People, and I've got the We the People American Constitution booklet at home, right?
Yes.
We will publish it. We will educate children, because it was removed from the curriculum in 1970 when we unlawfully, against our Constitution, went into the European Union. They knew what they was doing. They took over our institutions.
Okay, we know that. Tell them we know that.
He can hear you.
So what he is saying, what you're saying, Graham, is you're gonna do your homework. You came to class unprepared. That's like me. I'm never prepared. But I know I should. You know what? I should have done it. But you didn't do it. The next time he's here, is he gonna insist he does?
No, we're going to keep him in the field. We're going to keep him in the field. After the things he said about me, honestly, you know what though?
And he is his old joke. He's outstanding in his field.
Hey, very good. Next, taxi. Graham, I know what I would like to do. I'd like to clone you, and I'd like to put about 10,000 of you along the south and east coast of England. No one's going to get in if you do that. That would be what we should do. And you could batter them off with your pamphlet.
So let me make sure I'm clear with this. I'm not saying I don't like foreigners, but just saying that foreigners you cannot be in any institution. You for example, if the original Constitution was in place now today, that the British Nationality Act of 1948 erased part of it, illegally, by the way, right? It's never been challenged. We're trying to challenge it now. Sadiq Khan would never have been mayor. It's not allowed.
Okay,
So-
okay, rude man. All right, rude man
He's
in the
not
field.
being rude. He's not being rude. But I'm sorry. But that's not the issue that you're talking about. Yeah, okay, foreigners or no foreigners, people still need a constitution.
That's what I was going to say. Do you have a pamphlet that you can wave?
And that people can look at and take home and say, this is true.
That exists. The English Constitution Society has got that pamphlet.
Where can we get it?
And where can we get it? Yeah.
We have got that pamphlet. It shows you all the constitutional laws and in one small paragraph what it means. And we also tell people, you must stand up and tell people you are English, you are Scottish, you are Irish, you are Welsh, you are Cornish.
That's something else. That's another issue.
James Carroll, I think it was, just said, good debate, guys. I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
If you had the pamphlet, then you would silence us both.
Yeah, I would
Don't
say.
leave home without it.
Oh, no, where's the pamphlet? He's asking. Go to.
Oh, I think he's going to get the pamphlet.
I'd have to go to my car
Well,
and the
come back.
boots over there
All
and
right,
pick up.
do it.
Off you go.
Do it. Go and get it. Come back. We'll let you on, and we'll let you wave it. Yeah. Off you go. You finish your tea. Well, I hope that's Earl Grey. There we go. I think he's got the pamphlet. He's got the
He's got the
pamphlet.
pamphlet. I'd like to see the pamphlet.
I want the pamphlet, guys.
We all want the pamphlet.
Don't call it a pamphlet. It sounds like a nothingness.
It's got to be blue. It's got to have the Union Jack on the front.
Yeah, like a passport.
Or
American one like?
the St. George Cross.
What's the American one like?
Yeah,
guys?
America. I mean, there isn't an American one. It's a thing. I don't even know what it looks like. I myself, I've never seen it myself. What? Is that every American knows that it exists. Then when they get stopped by a cop car, they know their First Amendment, Second Amendment.
Well, they
Third
plead the Fifth all the time.
Would they plead the Fifth? They know what my rights are.
And the fourth.
And the Fourth, and they don't. I don't want any soldiers booked in my house. They know that that's part of the
Right
Constitution.
to bear arms is a constitutional
Yes,
right.
it is, and that's the fourth thing that he left out. He didn't leave out the right that Americans have guns, which is what makes America continues to be a great country.
Well, he was very complimentary about the United States, I have to say.
No, but he said that we did it. We didn't do it. America did it, but America was created by Britain, so Britain is the greatest country in the world.
America was created by Britain.
America was created by Britain, of course it was. All those people who went there because they wanted freedom and they wanted actually a written constitution. They didn't want to be. Yeah.
All right, apparently, breaking news, we have Graham Moore's back. Speak English, not British.
Yeah.
That's not a constitution.
You're not putting that in your pocket, are you?
No, well, I'm not sure you can hear us at the moment. But maybe he's got more. I'm going to put my glasses on so that I can see what he's got
But
here.
he is very English. The idea he's on a glamping trip.
Make England great again on the. That is it. Okay.
Not good enough.
Not the right colours.
Not the right colors. Number one, and it has to be. These are the rules. We want this voted on.
I'm going to give this one. I'm going to give this one to you.
Yeah.
Says down there,
Watch your
these
finger.
are your constitutional rights.
Right.
I like it. You know what? I'm going to split from Lewis here. Oh, there we are. Flag of St. George.
Well,
That's why it's that colour.
It's in the right direction, but it should be written out as a booklet this size that you could put in your back pocket.
I'm sorry, Graham, you failed with Lewis
No,
because
I
he
think
doesn't
that's
like
correct.
the format.
I don't like the format.
He doesn't like the
but
format.
I think I'm being petty.
You're being pedantic. That's how we should say it. What's 1D? I mean, I always wonder why that's a small point. Well, and Mega, make England great again.
When do we get one?
Where can we get one? Poocher's asking, where can we get one? Can you hear us? I think he's in the middle of the field. Yeah. Okay. The Constitution is the solution.
Yeah.
Where can we get a copy of this thing? Where can we get one?
You can get a copy at the English Constitution Society.co.uk or the English Constitution Party.com. So we do stand in elections. We're often attacked by the media. They won't promote us because they know what we stand for. The Constitution is the solution.
Well, fair play to you. I actually think you win on points there because you had it. You had it, Graham. And Lewis is grudgingly giving you part points there. I give you full marks. You got a constitution. And I haven't seen that. Though I have to tell you, you'll be welcomed with open arms in the old Liberal Democrat Party because they're obsessed with this idea. And I actually helped to write the Constitution or rewrite it for the Liberal Democrats. Well done. Congratulations. I take it that you've now woken everybody else on the campsite up.
Thank you. Yeah, I have.
Well,
I had to tell them before I come on the show, they was using a chainsaw. I said, could you stop using the chainsaw just for about 10 minutes?
Well, he's given you much more than that. Somebody's just said, it looks like we've spoiled your picnic by the look of it. So I do apologise for that. It's no picnic with you, Graham Moore. Congratulations, and thank you for telling me I was never supposed to be in Parliament in the first place. Makes me feel a bit better about losing. All right, thanks very much indeed. That is Graham Moore, who briefly turned this into like a two-dog attack on me. You, Lewis.
No, I didn't. I was
Graham
attacking him for being unprepared. But he's got a piece of paper. He needs a booklet. A booklet. It has to be the actual words. Like when you did the Constitution for the Liberal Democrats, it's an actual piece of paper.
It's a pamphlet. It always has to be about A5.
Yeah.
That's just the size it has to be,
Right.
I think. Okay, so he's got a folded A4.
No. It looks like something from a caravan park or something.
That's where he is. Maybe he just wrote. Maybe AI did it for him while we were on air.
Yeah.
Who knows? Anyway, there we are. You can find out more at the English Constitution blog. I think we'd have to do that again. After the break, please don't forget, if you do like what you're seeing here, do press like, that helps us as well. But after the break, we're going to go on to a subject which is not amusing in any way. It's Anne Widdecombe's demise, the murder of Anne Widdecombe. And we're going to speak to two people who know quite a lot about this kind of thing, including from the police's point of view. All of that here on UK Live after this.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. The Knob of the North has held his first cabinet meeting and announced an immediate cut to VAT on household electricity bills from 1st October, aiming to ease the cost of living crisis. The move is expected to save the average household £45 a year. Yes, mate, I can't wait to spend that extra 90 pence a week. Meanwhile, a London court heard that former Minister and Reform UK figure Anne Widdecombe, 78, was struck 21 times on the head with a hammer while eating lunch at her Devon home. Joshua Kerry, 28, has been charged with her murder. I see the Times isn't covering this. Right. Elsewhere, the new Defence Minister described a Russian warship's live-fire exercise off the UK coast as irresponsible. Appointing a convicted fraudster as Deputy Prime Minister is irresponsible in my book. Latest Tigers.
Welcome back. Lemon Derpick here, standing in for Kelvin MacKenzie with my outstanding and very feisty, effervescent colleague and outspoken.
That's one of those subjects that really gets my goat.
The Constitution.
Constitution.
You're still going on about the Constitution.
Or Americans are fat. It's the same kind of thing. Americans are fat. Take a look at the people in this country. They're all fat. You better watch your step before you criticize another country.
You've provoked millions of people just because you didn't like the format of Graham Moore's Constitution.
But it's not his Constitution. It's just like a summary of the rights, which is good. You can't go to court and say, hey, in this little pamphlet it says this.
No, because it's made up.
Yeah.
That's why. I think that's what he wants. And he claims there's some kind of legal...
He wants to have something that he made up.
Yeah, but maybe there's more to it. I have to say, I don't believe we live under a constitution. Otherwise, tons of things would be stopped that the state does to encroach particularly on our liberty.
Yeah.
Now, one thing which we know is illegal is what happened to Anne Widdecombe, and this is a dark subject, but we're going to cover it. Anne Widdecombe, a former Conservative minister, and then one of the most prominent voices of Reform UK, was found dead in her house by her gardener. It's estimated one whole day after she was killed. Suspect is in custody, my understanding is, and he has been charged with her murder. We need to cover this because for Anne's memory and for justice, we need to know what happened. And joining us first is June Slater, political commentator, on a subject which is not comfortable, but we have to discuss. June, thanks for joining us on this.
You're welcome. It's something I feel quite strongly about, actually, because I cannot believe the abhorrent neglect that the establishment that relied on her input for so long have completely forgotten about her. And, the usual news channels are quite barren with stories about this horrific death. It was horrific. 21 hammer blows to a woman who was a pocket-sized individual. She couldn't have ticked more vulnerable boxes, could she? I mean, she was elderly, she was frail, she was small, she was female, she lived alone.
And she was one of the most principled people I met. I have to say that I was, like most people who knew her, I was berated from time to time by her. But she did it as a critical friend, and she did it in a loving way. She lived her life more stoically than just about anyone else I know, and then made that very rare, successful transition from politics to celebrity, and then back into politics. I don't know many people who've done that. I wonder if you we've got to be careful with the legal side, I don't need to tell you that. I wonder if you have a view about the police handling of this, because it seems to be all over the place. And I was talking with Mike Graham about this at the beginning of the show. I feel that the one group that have been inappropriately speculating are the police themselves.
Well, I suppose it's difficult. It's live. They don't want to come across with the wrong information and have to backtrack. But inevitably, with everything these days, they end up backtracking anyway. I mean, how you can mistake 21 blows from a hammer to falling over as an elderly person is beyond me. I'm sure whoever turned up, forensics would have been there. That would have been noted quite early on. But she's a politician. She's a political figure. everything, they love publicity about things that are coming from right-wing extremists, but they seem to want to cushion things from other areas, and I think that's happened to Anne. I think it's dreadful the way it's been handled by the police and the media.
Beryl Welsh says you speak a lot of truth here, and another comment I saw on the screen, the piece of wood has become a hammer. And it does seem to me, Debbie Langton said that, the piece of wood now became a hammer. What I'm concerned about here is that this doesn't bring Anne back, but it was the way that we were told there is nothing to suggest at all that this is politically or terrorist motivated, but we don't want anyone to speculate. And then, within a few days, they say, oh, well, we're handing this over to the anti-terror police. And the reason this bothers me is because the politicisation of the murder, as you say, of a vulnerable elderly woman who shouldn't have ever had anything to fear, killed in her own kitchen. And I wonder if that's a problem, especially given the other stories we've had of misdirection, you might say, the Henry Novak case, for example, and the way we were emphatically told that the Southport murder of those children was a Welsh choir boy. I think all of this paints a bad picture.
Yeah, we're being gaslit by our own government and our own media. We have been for years. I mean, they've lied about everything, even simplistic stuff like Nissan shutting down because of Brexit, when in actual fact they're taking on apprentices. You don't take on apprentices if you're shutting down. So it starts with the small stuff. People get curious. We've got the internet. What I can't understand about the police and whoever handles their PR and political figures is, do they not understand that we have the facility to research, the facility to connect? They probably do, which is why they're trying to shut it down. And come up, we will speculate. That's human nature. You would, in the old days, read it in a newspaper. There'd be 2 or 3 people in the house discussing what you've just read in the newspaper. Now it happens online, on threads, on messages. That's normal behaviour, and the authority figures should accept that people will speculate. She's an elderly woman, she lives on her own, she's a political figure, she's connected to reform. You've only got to look at the death threats that Nigel Farage gets, and they don't take it seriously, simply because he's on the right of politics. Joe Brand could get away with saying on QI about the milkshake incident, what a pity it wasn't acid. And that's allowed. That's from the left, so that's okay. But if someone like me or you said that about someone on the left, they'd be up in arms about it. So it's this two-tier approach.
The classic case of this, and it was when Lucy Connolly was detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, put away for over a year for hurty words, stupid words, but hurty words, which to my knowledge never did inspire any actual damage to other people, to third parties. Over a year for that. But Ricky Jones, who was filmed saying, let's slit the throat of the far right and get rid of them all, said it was a joke or something, pleaded innocent and walked away. And what I'm worried about, and I've been told by Lucy Connolly's husband, that apparently the Home Secretary was actually involved in the judgment of how long Lucy Connolly would be behind bars. Whatever happened to the judiciary and the legislature being separate?
Well, they're not anymore, are they? It's a political appointment these days. And you've only got to look at this. Vocabulary is very important. Lucy Connolly ended with, she said some awful things, but she ended with, for all I care. That is someone washing their hands of something. That's what my mother would have said if I didn't come in on time. Stay out till bloody midnight, for all I care. That isn't telling me to stay out till midnight. That's showing me I'm on my last chance. And that's it. She's washed her hands of me. That's all Lucy Connolly did. She had a dog walk, came back and thought better of it and took the tweet down. That's all you can. That shows remorse. It shows a rethink. But that gets you a jail sentence and simultaneously releasing violent criminals to make space in jails. That just doesn't make sense. And people see it.
I want to show a clip in a minute, actually, about an inopportune joke. But before that, if we can get the clip ready, but I want to just cite something called Coulter's Law, which comes from the States, and I'm not sure if Lewis has a view on this, but I quote, it's an observation that the longer it takes for a mass shooting to be publicly attributed to a specific demographic, the less likely the perpetrator is to be a white male. Now, that's my concern. My feeling is that they were falling over themselves to tell us that the Liverpool car ram raider was a white British local man in his 50s, but then there's this silence, or there's an attempt to try to skew things when the background isn't that.
It's utter stupidity, because if you're looking for someone, you want a description, you want basic height, hair colour, skin tone. This helps you identify them. This isn't racial stuff. This is common sense. And now we're being led by such woke people that I was even describing someone the other day, and I thought, oh, I better not say that he's Afro-Caribbean because that might get me into trouble. And yet that's the easiest way to describe him, because he was such a big and full character that you'd just say, oh, it's Jerry, the Afro-Caribbean guy, as a compliment, as a direction to click in with who you mean. Keeping the ethnicity, skin colour, all the rest of it, hair colour, anything, height, weight, language, if you've overheard him speaking. All this helps to identify someone quickly, especially people on the run. How many have we had on the run, breaking free from jail? Come on, this is just the breakdown of society before our eyes.
We've got a clip here which is careless, to say the least. And what you're seeing here, we'll only play it once, so just say what you're looking at here. There was the new cabinet essentially joking about letting people out of prison early. Now, you could say it was picked up rather fortuitously by whoever was listening on what's called a hot mic. But nevertheless, you just think, these are all, it confirms all the things we think about what the government's doing. Can we just play that clip, please?
Oh, are you? You know he's the enemy now, isn't he? No, he's not. When did you do your swearing in? Okay, tell me when it is. Come around, I want to come.
And the active ingredient there is he wants to let them all out. Ha, ha, ha. Now, I understand that if we record everything we say all the time, then people are going to be careless. But at a time like this, when they must know they're being watched, it tells you all you need to know.
Well, add it to Jenrick. What did Jenrick say when he left his cabinet position? He said he sat there, I think they were talking about HMOs. I can't remember the topic, but he looked around at the cabinet who were laughing. They were just laughing at whatever was going on in the cabinet. And that was his moment when he thought he'd had enough. And he walked out of his job because he could see that the cabinet wasn't giving an absolute toss about the public. They don't. We've got to stop thinking these people are bothered about us. They're career politicians. They're indoctrinated minds. They go straight from university to being a SPAD or an aide and hopefully want to become an MP. And I think anybody who studied psychology, is it psychology, politics and economics at Oxbridge? They should be banned from politics because they don't know anything. They just know things from textbooks. And that doesn't appear to have helped us in the last 35 years. We need some people with some common sense. Zia Yusuf makes more common sense when you're talking to him than half that cabinet put together. And we've got a convicted fraudster now in a top job.
Sweet Freedom says more like a wedding party than a political one. I have to tell you, though, I have to declare an interest. I studied philosophy at Bristol University. So I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Pardon?
You relived them when they were normal.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. I will take that as a double-edged compliment. I think they're anything but normal now. They might as well just merge with the Greens, in my view. Thank you very much indeed, Jane. That's Jane Slater, who says some pretty important and hard-hitting things. We'll come to one more guest on this subject in a moment. But Lewis, there's this Coulter's law, which was coined by someone called Coulter, I think, and it said that the less information you get about someone's demographic in America, the more likely they're not going to be white male.
Well, I find it always interesting when English people talk. They talk like they just kind of are beginning to realize that the police are their enemy. And the police are the enemy in this country. They are the shock troops of the leftist globalists, and the globalists don't represent English, British people.
How is it in America?
Well, in America, you vote for your own independent police. So in some places, the police represent them, and in some places, the police represent us. But definitely in this country, you can't trust the police.
A police commissioner has just been elected in the east of England. It's Reform UK. It'll be interesting to see if he can make any difference.
Yeah, but I mean, he's got a problem because all of those people have been put in place before he got there. I mean, I've seen it myself with the police in this country, where there was an accident over in East Dulwich, and a car was being chased by the police. So the police were in process of chasing somebody, and they ran into somebody, and the guy's car flipped over because the police were speeding, chasing somebody. And the police went up to the guy, and I was right there, went up to the guy and said, "This didn't happen. This did not happen. This is not our fault. You're not going to make a big deal about this." And it was like,
that's shocking.
It was too much.
Well, the police infamously arrested a woman engaging in silent prayer opposite an abortion clinic that was closed.
Yes.
She was arrested for a thought crime.
What in the Constitution isn't what bill is what is that in the Constitution?
That's a very good point, well made. That's why we.
If he had had a Constitution, she would have been able to pull it out and say, "You're violating my right now."
Well, I believe she got compensated, and then they did it again. They arrested her again. And you've had street preachers, Christian street preachers, have been arrested south of England because apparently they caused offence.
Because they're at war. The police are at war with Christianity, and they're at war with white people and the original natives of this country.
Let's go back to the subject we were discussing here on UK Live, and please do press like if you find us interesting. It's not always happy making, but hopefully it's informative. And I want to go back to the question of Anne Widdecombe and talk about this with somebody who's had a lot of police experience, and that's Keith Tordoff, MBE. Keith, good to see you again. It's been a while. How have you been? And there's what's called a lot of latency going on here. I think it's about 2 minutes behind me. Keith, wakey. Can you hear me there? I think we may have a slight issue with the line there.
We'll try him again.
Yeah, okay. We're going to go back to Keith. Either that or he's so shocked by the question he just didn't want to answer it.
Yeah.
Keith Tordoff was a West Yorkshire police officer for 20 years. What worries me is this politicization of the police. It seems to me that they take their orders from the Uni Party. And when you look at the deep differences, the similarities between the parties, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dems, on international policy, on what I believe is a fake climate emergency, on all of these things, that's why Reform UK was a surging alternative. And I just wonder if the reason that there's so much attention on Nigel Farage, he's a fallible mortal, is because they're terrified.
Of course it is, because of this war. No one's discussing it. They think it's like you're discussing it like, oh, we should let people go into politics. It has nothing to do with that. These are the police and the military are the shock troops of the leftist regime, the globalist regime. So
Let's get to finish on that difficult subject, but we have to cover it, and I think it's important. And that's the death of Anne Widdecombe. It's not just the death, but the murder of Anne Widdecombe, in fact. And Keith Tordoff joins us now. Hopefully the line's a bit better, if you can hear me.
I can, Limbic. Good morning.
Good to see you. I was saying it's been a while. How have you been?
Very well, loving the sun and the nice weather. It's getting a bit of a tan with it in the garden, so it's great.
And it saves going abroad. This is why, I won't go into this too much, but why do people in the media tell us to panic whenever it's still not as hot as the places we fly to? This is a strange thing. Sadly, of course, the weather still doesn't remove the very dark cloud over the death of Anne Widdecombe. Now, you've been a police officer yourself. I don't want to lead the witness here, but what's your take of the handling by the police of the Anne Widdecombe murder investigation?
Well, I think it's important to say my police service is obviously historic. I worked on major investigations, including the so-called Yorkshire Ripper murders from 1975 to 1980. And there was a lot of press at the time, bad press against certainly senior police officers and the way they handle the media. So being careful about this case, clearly because of sub judice, that I can generalise, and I must say that so far I think it's been handled fairly badly, certainly from Devon and Cornwall Police in terms of how they've conducted the media and what they've said at press conferences, which has no doubt led to massive amounts of speculation. Nobody's ever going to stop speculation in the pub, in the park or wherever. But it doesn't help if there's a lot of mixed messages and things coming through the media. So, I don't think it's a subject which I'm trying to be careful with because of the sub judice, and clearly now the guy has been charged. Everybody has to be a little bit careful, but I would say lessons don't seem to be learned from historic cases and how the media have been worked with, how it's all been dealt with, and certainly the police. Lots of questions to be answered at some point by them, why things have been said initially and why it's led people to be wondering what is actually going on here, because there's still a lot of speculation because of now what is being released to the media.
I totally get the sub judice point. So let's pursue a different aspect of this, which is very much on my mind. I was concerned. I was involved in the Northern Ireland peace process, and it was probably dangerous, more dangerous than maybe I imagined at times. And it occurred to me that it would be very difficult to provide the kind of wraparound security that would guarantee, or more or less guarantee, every member of Parliament's safety. I wonder if you have a view on this. We've had the death of David Amos, who was murdered. Ms. Cox was murdered. We've now had this Anne Widdecombe. Is it possible to secure or guarantee the safety of politicians, bearing in mind, of course, Nigel Farage himself has had relentless death threats?
Absolutely not. Again, historic, but I was a firearms trained police officer in West Yorkshire, where I was involved in the protection of people when they visited West Yorkshire, such as Margaret Thatcher in a day, Merlin Rees, etc. So I say historic, but and a different kind of weaponry that we were issued with to do that. But if you're in the public light, and I've stood to be both Police Fire Crime Commissioner in North Yorkshire where I live, and also Mayor of York and North Yorkshire where I live, unsuccessfully, but you put yourself out there, and even in that low level, I got targeted by people, especially if they knew that my background had been as a police officer in West Yorkshire. So the police have lost all, the trust of the public, and I understand that, and that's why I see that people are no trust, no faith in what's going on, and I fully get that, and it needs to change. So can you protect people all the time? No. Can you protect these politicians all the time? No. Do they need to be accessible? Of course they do. So there's a balance to be had here. But if somebody's going to do something, I won't put ideas into people's head, but it's very, very simple to get at somebody, even if they've got protection around them. So no, I think you put yourself in that position. Hopefully there'll be a certain level of protection offered, but we've not to get it so that the people who are in the public light, people who are elected MP, become totally out of reach to the public to talk to or get the message across to. Otherwise, that's what's going wrong at the moment. Nobody feels that they've got a say in anything. The public don't feel they've got a say in anything. And very much the same with the police. They feel that they can't talk to the police. Police stations have been made more remote, take them further away, great big stations, well away from the communities. Police officers flying around in cars, very rarely stopping to speak to the public and finding things out. We need a root and branch reform and view of how we're going to get the trust, confidence back to the public, how we protect people such as MPs. We need to look at that. But however many people you put around them, however many sort of bulletproof, bomb-proof Range Rovers you provide them with, there are still going to be opportunities for people who are determined to do something. So do the best you can, put things the best you can in place, but realistically, it could be, if you make the target harder at the top, they'll just go down the level to the next level down or the level below that, and somebody else gets attacked.
Anne Widdecombe was in Parliament still the same year when I left, 2010, 16 years ago. She was briefly a member of European Parliament. Does that mean that, frankly, all of the thousands of politicians who have reached some level of prominence can't have their safety guaranteed?
I don't think they can have it guaranteed. I say I won't go into ways and means, but clearly, if you're determined to try and cause some damage to somebody, you can do it. And especially if they appear in any public area, do you stop the MPs going to the local pub? How do they represent the people in the community? Unfortunately, there's got to be a level of protection, maybe when they're doing surgeries, etc. But when they're going around the constituencies, if they're going to be protected all the time, you need a lot of people to provide the protection that, say, at the top of the tree, i.e. the prime ministers and some of the, ministers with, high-profile portfolios are protected. Yes, but then you come down to a Conservative, a Labour, Lib Dem, Green in their own constituency, who can then be targeted to, in effect, make the message known to the people further up the tree who people can't get to. So, no, I don't think you can protect everybody. They're just too vast. But maybe what we can say is the government can make laws or put laws into place which clearly make it a deterrent for people to consider if they're going to do anything of this nature. So possibly it's putting laws into place, but not in terms of preventing people's freedom of speech, freedom of expression, to demonstrate, etc. Because these people who get these roles, and I stood for these roles, need to know if they aren't doing things right. And sometimes that's done through demonstration, protest, shouting, or in the old days, throwing an egg at somebody.
Thank you so much, Keith Tordoff, and obviously we will wait to see, MBE, my apologies, we'll wait to see what the outcome of the Anne Widdecombe case will be, and that's going to run and run. So we say goodbye to Keith, but I want to turn to Lewis for final comments on this. We were talking about the right to bear arms in America. There's a big lobby which says the Americans should get rid of that right to bear arms. Where do you stand on this?
I totally believe that people should be allowed to. First of all, a gun is a very small thing, and if you say you're not allowed to have a gun, you're basically allowing the state to go into your home to look for something this big. Same thing with drugs. Same thing with anything. They should let people do what they want to do. And the countries that do not have the right to bear arms, like Iran, perfect example. They've got no way to defend themselves against the evil mullahs. And this country, the people do not have guns, so they have no way to defend themselves.
90 people die every day in the United States from gunshot wounds. Has to be said, half of those are accidental or self-inflicted.
Yes, self-inflicted.
And we've got to be honest about it. And also America's got 5 times the population of the UK. Yeah. But nevertheless, that's 45 people a day who are being murdered, 45 homicides with guns. Yeah. What would happen if the guns vanished?
We would lose America's freedom.
Why?
Because the police can be like here. They just come knock on your door. We're coming in. And what can you do about it? In the past, this has been a gentle country. But obviously, the state, whatever we call the state, doesn't care about that anymore. And they're not afraid of their citizens.
I go to Washington quite a lot. And I don't want to tempt fate, but it feels fairly safe to me. Yeah. And you don't see people just touting guns in the street. Is America safer because of the right to bear arms?
No, it's not safer. But the concept of freedom is safer in America. I grew up in a place nobody had guns. I never saw a gun. All of New York City, they banned guns, which should be against the law. So there are places that have no guns in America. The people, like in America, historically, have not shot each other. But there are certain groups of people that are dangerous. People should be left alone. That's what I believe.
Lewis Schaefer, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you, whatever your personal views about me. And give my regards to Nunhead. That is great. I love your show, Lembit, says Ruth. Thank you. I love your willingness to view as well. And please, if you love the show and you haven't done it already, please do like UK Live. Costs you nothing, helps us a lot. And that brings us to end of what seems a very fast 2 hours there. Obviously great to have Lewis Schaefer and previously Ellie Hodges and all the other guests along. Heavy conversations, but sometimes we must have them. In the meantime, I hope you like the show. Big thanks to the team. Absolutely brilliant. Bruce and Scarlett, they are total Premier League production team. I'll be back whenever I can lock Kelvin MacKenzie in the cupboard again. He'll get out soon. But when he's back, then enjoy his show as well, and all the other great shows that we have here. Until next time, then, I'm Len Bitopic, signing off for UK Live. Have a good day.